Welcome back, all my 40K fanatics out there. I'm DJ here with Tim's Nation to bring you my army list. I'll be taking on Lane and his custodes. Battle of Silver and Gold later on tonight. Guys, if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please do. And once again, thank you for all the support as we just crossed the threshold of 1,000 subscribers. Turn on the bell for notification, get notified on all the content that we bring you here on the channel. So recently, I was talking about my army and just kind of like my views on like what I've seen from Grey Knights. How I looked at them when I was building an army, how I looked at them for the playstyle. And granted, it was all my personal opinion. That's all what it was. So now with all those thoughts and everything in the process, I've made some tweaks. The list I took to the grand tournament that I went to did very well, and I still wanted to make some tweaks and see if I could make some changes. After that, playing against World Eaters, I realized I should never have taken the Purifiers out. So now, the last of the tweaks that I made is going into this list. So this list looks very, very similar to the ones I've played before, with only a small change, kind of the combination between the two. And we'll see how this performs tonight. All right, guys, well, let's take a look at the list that I'm bringing against Lane's Golden Boys. All right, guys, here's the Grey Knights that I'm going to be taking today against Lane and the Custodes. So, friends and fans of the channel will notice this army looks very similar to the last couple that I posted on here with some minor changes. And hopefully, this will be the final iteration of this list that I'll have sitting and ready for tournament play up until September when we see our point drops, maybe some different changes. Who knows? Who knows? But that's coming up around the corner. So, this should be the final draft of this list if everything works out well. So let's talk about the returning units first, and then we'll talk about the slight changes that I've made and how I've progressed with this list. So the things that have stayed the absolute 100% the same that I haven't touched. Number one, the Land Raider. I absolutely love the Land Raider, and every Grey Knight player knows they love the opportunity to run one of these big beasties. Unfortunately, some of the reasons that he's getting run right now is because he's the only option that we have for heavy anti-tank fire. Given the fact that Custodes are basically walking tanks, he's going to have a lot to shoot at today. Multi-Melta, Heavy Bolter, Hunter Killer, the works. Moving over into our next anti-tank, anti-big guy target, the Nemesis Dread Knight. So the Nemesis Dread Knight, complete with hammer, he is able to just wreck on the charge. And this is a regular Dread Knight, so I have the advance and charge option. Once again, he is very good at hitting and doing damage to larger multi-wound units, models, etc., especially on the tank shock. So hopefully he will have some good targets to hit. Now, I don't want to be rushing him into a pocket of custodian infantry, because then he's just going to get picked up and removed. But if he's able to get onto a flank and maybe get to a couple of custodian guard that are on a objective or smaller units, he should come in handy and be helpful in those scenarios. Now, another thing that has stayed the same, we have our 2 5-man Interceptor Squad. Interceptors are great at scoring secondaries. They can get into spots that other units can't. They're fast, they're mobile, and they're just point scoring galore. These guys are ones that down to the last model is still value. One guy left, move too close, pick him up off the table with Mr. Demos, and that's point scores. These guys have been instrumental in helping me to score my gambit. Even though it wasn't a loss, it was still a successful gambit, which I'm very happy for. Now, moving over into the Terminators. So we have the 5-man Terminator team is still sticking around. The Grandmaster's staying home today, but they are still around. With the banner, these guys are objective control value 3. So one of the reasons I took the Grandmaster out was I didn't want the sigil of exigence on this unit anymore. These guys are tough. The Apothecary makes them tough. They can get into reserve and put a guy back. These guys are already a pain in the butt for most people to deal with, especially when they're mostly out of line of sight for most of the game. So having extra defense of don't shoot at these guys, they'll jump away, usually just meant these guys got ignored and didn't get the chance to utilize what I'm spending the points on. They're 3 wounds, they're toughness 5, and they're 4 up invuln. So without the Grandmaster, these guys might be a little more susceptible to damage, but that's okay. Each model is an objective control value 3. So hopefully that'll still play well with it, and they'll still do well. The last iteration of the list, I was running 2 5-man squads, and I felt like one had a general role, the other squad did not. So I went back down to just a single 5-man Terminator. Next up is our 2 5-man strike that are also going to be accompanied by one of the newer additions to my army in general, 4 servitors and a tech marine. So one of the 5-man squads is going to be joined by the tech marine and the 4 servitors, making it a 10-man, 10-model unit that can bounce around the field. The tech marine has the sigil of exigence. So the tech marine is going to be able to bounce this unit around when they get shot at. Being that this squad is Marines, softer, 2 wounds, still a 2-up save, they have sticky objectives. When they get shot at and being able to pick them up and put them back down on an objective that can then cycle a command phase allows me to keep control of that objective in weird and interesting ways. It's one of the things I like to call the small child running through rooms, turning light switches on and off. So this is the new trial where I moved away from the Grandmaster with the Terminators, and I'm going to try and run the Strike Marines bouncing around the field with the Tech Marine and the Sigil of Exigence. The servitors that are going to join, I do have 2 multi-meltas in there because why not? But typically it's the 6-up invuln that I like on these guys. So when I do get hit by something bigger, at least I have 4 wounds and 4 6-up invulns to try to wield through the damage before I lose the more valuable Strike Marines in this. And then as for the other 5-man Strike Marine, they're going to be very valuable as well, bouncing around the field, being able to sticky different objectives and just provide me more board coverage. You know, MSU 5-mans are basically the way that I like running this army and how I feel this thing runs best. Also, a returning friend, our Countess Assassin. Countess Assassin is great on all extents. One, she synergizes with this army well because she as well can be picked up off the field and redeployed down, same as my army's special rule. She also can infiltrate, so I can get her outside of the deployment zone to put a threat onto an objective marker outside of my deployment zone. And lastly, but surely not least, she can also make a stratagem cost an additional command point after my opponent uses it for the rest of the game. And that can be huge for some defensive stratagems and stuff that may give my opponent more speed to move around the board in many, many, many matchups. All right, last of the units is the returning unit. This is a unit that I took out of my last iteration of the list, and as soon as I did it, I immediately regretted it. Lane even told me, he's like, I don't know why you're taking them out, and you know what? He was 100% right. I should not have gone home without them. And that is my Purifiers. So we have 10 Purifiers that will be led by Castellan Crow. So with these guys, this is some of the strongest anti-infantry in the game. With their anti-infantry 2-up on their Purifying Flame, 4 incinerators, which are basically heavy flamers, and just some storm bolters. These guys ignore cover for most of their shooting. And then on top of it, they got a nasty, nasty combat profile combined with Castellan Crow, who also has a nasty combat profile and some precision hits to be able to remove characters in squads if it's needed, if he needs to do it. It's extra resources and extra power. What these guys do well for me is being able to remove infantry so that units have to walk around runes. This can, 1, give me time to score secondaries, score primaries before I need to get the unit out of a bad place, and 2, can as well as sticky objectives, mind you, because it makes it harder for my opponent to get on there and turn off the sticky objective. And 2, these guys are just they're a threat. They're a bigger bomb unit that I have as a threat to be able to really hit my opponent's infantry and try to control one aspect of the game that that Grey Knights can do well at, and that is some anti-infantry. All right, so there's the list. We're going to be playing into custodes tonight. So custodes are very tough, very durable, a lot of wounds, whew, and they are one of the tougher matchups in the meta. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Grey Knights are able to perform into the custodes. Some of the similar stuff that we saw with Imperial Knights is lower AP, APs 1 and AP 2, I can possibly defend against. However, I don't know if Lane is going to bring the Countess Assassin, and that's always looming in the back of my mind. Countess Assassin vexes one of my strats, and that makes our game plan harder. Now, on top of that, we don't have a lot of damage to be able to pick up some of his higher wound models, higher toughness models. So basically, we're going to be running into an army of little mini tanks for most of the game. And so that's going to be tough. But we're quick, we're speedy, we got agility. Hopefully that'll be what can pull us through in the end. All right, guys. Well, Lane's going to have his battle report. I'm going to be getting that recorded here and get that out there soon. And then his army list. And then we'll be getting you the battle report out here. Guys, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you again soon.